Good evening and welcome to Reflections. Our program this evening is featuring the Stark County Board of Mental Retardation and Developmental Disabilities, and we'll be talking about options for community living. Our first two guests are Tom Season, who's a superintendent, and Fran Pratt, who is a social services director. Now, Tom, what is the role of the Stark County Board of Mental Retardation and Developmental Disabilities in providing residential services to people that have developmental disabilities?
Well, currently, and I think it's very important that people understand that the board does not operate residential facilities. The board acts more as a facilitator and also helps in the assistance in placement. And the board also acts as a flow-through for the state dollars that we get for residential development. So
you don't actually run the facility, you're just getting people through there, you're more organizing it?
Correct. We assist in the placement of persons in homes.
Okay, what is the purpose of having these community homes?
The purpose of having the community homes is to provide a residential-like setting to persons who have developmental disabilities. The state years ago decided to deinstitutionalize, or they felt that institutions were too large and really not appropriate for persons who had developmental disabilities. And they began community options for persons, finding community placements for persons with developmental disabilities. And also, as the population gets older and many of the parents are getting older, they're beginning to look at residential options for their son or daughter.
I imagine they've become necessary.
Yes, very much so.
Okay, now Fran, can you tell us a little bit about the history of the residential development for persons with disabilities in our community?
Sure. About 20 years ago, when, as Tom mentioned before, that the state decided to start closing down some of their larger institutions, group homes were in the offing. In other words, they started making and providing incentives for people to operate homes for people coming out of the institutions. So that started about 20 years ago. And our board, in about 1976, took the initiative to start looking at additional options besides group home living, and we started what was called an apartment program, and we called it independent living, and then in addition to that, semi-independent living, so that people could make the transition to become as independent as possible in the community.
Were there steps? In other words, if someone couldn't go to the next step, did they stay at the one level of independence?
That was the thinking back then. As with everything, the state and the local county board became more progressive, and now what we've looked at is trying to provide supports for individuals in homes of their own choosing.
Now, are there resources available for people who want to keep their family members at home?
Yes, there are, Susie. We operate a program called Family Resource Services, and that is a state-funded program. And what we provide for families who have a family member living at home is respite care. In other words, an opportunity to get away for a few hours and have someone come in and watch someone in their own home, or out-of-home respite, which would provide them the opportunities to maybe go away for a weekend or something. The whole purpose was to try to provide supports for families in their own home. A couple of the other services for Family Resource Services include special equipment. We've assisted some families in accessing wheelchairs, things of that nature, home modifications, ramps, things again that would allow the family member with disability to be able to remain in the home.
And would be really needed.
Yes.
What resources are available for families who are interested in securing residential living for family members?
We would recommend that families call our office at 477-4477.
Okay, and it's really nice to know that there are a lot of different options. Does it make you feel good that, you know, there's so many different ways that people can live?
Yes, it does. Especially in recent years, many more options have become available, and it's very exciting as to what's happening in community living for persons with disabilities.
Okay, and what's that phone number one more time?
477-4477.
Okay, we'll be back with more. Stay with us. We're speaking to Bob Bowen, who is from Molly Stark Hospital, where he's the Director of Habilitation. And also, we're still speaking to Tom Season, who's the Superintendent of the Stark County Board of Mental Retardation and Developmental Disabilities. Now, Bob, there's been a lot of talk, a lot of things in the paper about Molly Stark downsizing. Why is it downsizing?
There are a number of answers to that. Let me see if I can be succinct here. Since 1987, the facility has had difficulty in maintaining Medicaid certification. Every year, Medicaid would come in and survey the facility, and they would say this was wrong or that was wrong. And we just were not able to meet the expectations, partly because of our size. We have 60 people that live there. Partly because of the age of the building. It was built in 1929 to be a tuberculosis hospital and not really a home for people, which is what Medicaid is expecting. And so the decision was made by families, clients, guardians, parents, staff, that we should make a decision to downsize rather than wait for the state to come in and say, okay, it's been long enough, we're going to downsize for you and we'll tell you where to go. We decided that it would be better for the clients and the families to be able to say where they would go. It also will improve the quality of life of people with disabilities to live in home-like settings as opposed to a large institution.
Okay, so in other words, the people should be happier living in the residential living, is that right?
That's generally what's been seen during the last 20 or 25 years, that this process has been happening in places around the state and around the country.
Now, wouldn't it be worse for them if they move into a residential home and they're not accepted or people don't want them there?
Generally what happens is neighbors become upset because they really don't know what it is all about. People with disabilities are seen historically as perhaps being violent, which really isn't the case. What we've experienced, what I've experienced in the 20 years that I've been in this field, is that neighbors get upset. You move in, and 6 months later or a year later, they bring pies and cookies over because they realize that these people are just that, people.
Now, don't the people that are at Molly Stark need a lot of medical attention?
Some of them do. And for those few people, I think there are 8 people that we've identified that need medical services. They will go into a group home that has 24-hour nursing available for them. The other people that live at Molly Stark don't need that intensive a service, but because of our size, they all get it.
Now, is it more costly? How does the cost compare to being at Molly Stark compared to residential living?
Okay. Specifically at Molly Stark, it's about $219 per day per client to live at Molly Stark is what our costs are. Costs in the community generally range much lower, and it depends on the type of service, whether you're looking at a supported living model or more of a group home model. But generally, you're looking at a savings of 20 to 40%, and that's been substantiated by studies that have been done independently across the country.
Is that because when someone is in Molly Stark, everything is available to them, so it's very expensive to maintain a hospital that has everything available that maybe the clients don't need, where in residential living it would be more suited to the individuals? Is that right, Tom?
Yes, I agree with Bob. Yes, that's a good perception of it. Yes.
Okay. Now, do the people I'd asked Bob this before. Do they get accepted by the neighbors? Does this work out eventually?
We have seen a greater acceptance of the neighbors of persons who live in the homes or the supported living homes. We've come a long way in the past several years, but we do still have some barriers that we need to break down. And I think as more people become settled in community homes, I think those barriers will be broken.
Is it a problem of communication that the neighbors aren't aware of what's going to be going on or what sort of people are going to be there?
I think, as Bob said, I think there's been a lot of fear and just a lot of old perceptions of the types of persons that will be moving into the group homes.
Okay, thank you. We'll be back with more on options for living. Stay with us. Our next two guests are Kathy Toth, who's the Executive Director of CIFRN, and of course Tom Season, who's a Superintendent. Kathy, what is CIFRN Residential?
CIFRN Residential is a private nonprofit agency that was established here in Stark County about 18 years ago. Our mission and our purpose is to provide environments for people with mental retardation and developmental disabilities to live successfully in our communities. It was founded in 1976 by a group of concerned parents who had family members with disabilities. Their concern was the lack of residential options available for people with mental retardation. The agency is governed by a volunteer board of trustees, and currently we're serving about 150 people in the Stark County area.
Okay, now how is SIFRN involved in residential support to people with mental retardation and developmental disabilities in our community?
Basically, we're providing services in two ways. There are a group of people with mental retardation and developmental disabilities who need assistance in their life on a 24-hour-a-day basis. We're providing that assistance to people in small residential homes where 4 or 5 people will live together with staff assistance on a 24-hour-a-day basis. And basically, we're supporting all the kinds of things that you and I do in our lives for people. Right now, SIFRN has 12 homes in the Stark County area. The other way we provide services is a program called Supported Living, and that is geared to people who don't need somebody with them 24 hours a day. They may need assistance at different levels. That group of people usually live in apartments, or they still live with their families, or they live in their own homes. And support staff see them on a routine basis. They provide transportation services, maybe cooking skills, money skills, help them with benefits that they might be entitled to. And it's a very flexible system where a person may need to see you and have your help one day a week, maybe every day, or maybe just once a month.
How successful has this program been?
The Supported Living program has been supported by the Stark County Board of Mental Retardation for 15 years. And as I said, our network of group homes has grown steadily since that first home was established in 1976, up to 12 homes right now.
So you've been accommodating a lot of people.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Tom, what type of experience has the MRDD had with SIFRN, and are you pleased?
Yes, we are. We're very pleased. It's been a very good relationship over the years. SIFRN is one of the contract agencies that provides residential services, and we're very pleased.
Okay, and they've had a good track record, and
yes, good track record, very successful, and have helped many, many persons with developmental disabilities.
Do you receive feedback from the families as well?
Yes, we do. Many people have told us how satisfied they are with the residential placement that has been provided for their individual.
It's really nice that you have it so individualized that you're very flexible with the people with their different needs if they need a lot of attention or a little attention.
Right. That's a system that's certainly grown as we've become better at what we do. In fact, there have been many people that have started out in a supervised, 24-hour-a-day supervised home that have moved on to much less assistance from staff over the years. People with disabilities have many skills and attributes that we might not see in maybe an institutional setting.
With your clients receiving so much individualized attention, do your caseworkers get attached?
Yes, that is the case. Not often, but occasionally people have developed relationships that have extended on beyond the time a person is employed by SIFRN.
Okay, thanks for coming this evening.
Thank you.
We'll be speaking more about options for community living. Stay with us. We're talking to the Stark County Board of Mental Retardation and Developmental Disabilities about options for community living. We're speaking right now to Greg Shaver from VOCA and also Tom Season, who's the superintendent. Greg, what is VOCA?
VOCA Corporation is a residential provider for persons with mental retardation and developmental disabilities. Currently, we operate in 7 states, And we provide a variety of residential services as well as supported living. The name VOCA, it has an interesting background. It comes from the word advocacy. And that's basically what we're about at VOCA. We're advocates for the residents that live in our homes. A lot of our residents can't speak or care for themselves. So we take that job upon ourselves. And our main goal is to give them as good a life as possible, as independent as they can possibly be, and to utilize the community to the fullest extent they can.
Okay, well, let's take a look at a typical group home and some of the activities that go on during the day.
Okay. First of all, the homes from the outside look like any home in the neighborhood. We take great pains at making sure that they fit into the scheme of the neighborhood, so to speak. It's all new construction. It's quality construction. We think they're very attractive. And we also go that extra step and make sure we landscape each of the sites so that they just blend in. We don't want them sticking out for a half a year while weeds grow up or grass or anything like that.
That's important.
Yeah. A typical day in a group home would be like a typical day at your own home. Residents would be getting up in the morning, taking care of all their personal things, getting ready for work. Then they're going to go in and help prepare their own meal. That's one of the big areas that we work on, their involvement in their mealtime routine. And a lot of our residents haven't been given that opportunity, so they're preparing their meal. And then they sit down. And we found that meal times are one of the best times for the residents because it's a social time. Our staff members sit down with them, and it's a very social time, as well as a time for role modeling. We found that a lot of our training is through staff through role modeling. So if someone's having difficulty with some table manners, maybe they can watch a staff member show them proper table manners. And then they're going to go off to work or school. We still have some individuals that go to school. Then they come home, just like all of us do, and they'll have something that they need to do. Maybe a household chore, or someone needs to weed the garden in the summertime or something like that. And there's going to be another person in the home preparing the meal for the evening with staff assistance to the extent that they need that assistance. Then they sit down, again, another social time, and then after dinner they're going to get into their own time, so to speak. They can do leisure activities. A lot of them like to go out in the community, sporting events, things like that. And some people are a lot like me. They like to sit home, they pop a movie into the VCR and just watch. We want everyone to have the choices in what they do. Choices from anything, what they want to eat for a meal, to what they want in their room, what color paint they want in that room, what the furniture is supposed to look like in the living room. And that's the choices that we want them to have, not just, I want to get up in the morning, or I don't want to get up in the morning. Because our ultimate goal at VOCA is for everyone to have as independent a life as possible and be integrated into the community. And the last picture that we've brought this evening just shows a woman who is the epitome of what we're looking for with VOCA Corporation. She's in a store by herself. She's got her own purse. She's got her own keys to the home, so she's independent in the fact that she can get in and out of her home, and there's no one with her in that home. She's got her own wheelchair. She gets around on her own. But the biggest thing is that she's in that store buying something that she's chosen, handing the money over, leaving, and there's not someone standing over her helping her do it. And that's the ultimate goal: independence, self-respect, and community integration.
I think that's been an underlying theme in everything you've been saying, is to make them as independent as possible in order to maintain their self-respect.
Exactly.
Now, Tom, what is VOCA's relationship to the MRDD?
Well, VOCA is a provider of homes for persons with developmental disabilities. VOCA began the process of bidding for the privilege of providing residential homes for persons. So that is their responsibility. Now, we also have a responsibility to monitor the homes and the residential facilities provided by the private providers.
Okay, so your job is that of monitoring what's already going on.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. We'll be speaking next to Robert Leonard from LEDA Services. Stay with us. We're talking this evening with the Stark County Board of Mental Retardation and Developmental Disabilities, and we're discussing options for community living. Our next guest is Robert Leonard, who's here from LEDA Services Incorporated, and of course we're still speaking with Tom Season, who's the superintendent. Now, Bob, what are LEDA Services?
Well, LEDA Services is a private provider that operates in the state of Ohio to help provide community home services for people with developmental disabilities. We also provide services for people who want to live in a more independent situation beyond community homes, but our primary emphasis is community homes for people.
Okay, now if you're going to be within a community, you're going to have neighbors. What sort of concerns are expressed by neighbors?
Well, neighbors usually bring to us several different sorts of concerns. And we understand that whenever you provide opportunities for people, you also provide an opportunity for people to have concerns. Generally, the concerns that neighbors bring are, one, they want to know what sorts of folks will be living in the home. Most people in this day and age still aren't accustomed to people with developmental disabilities living and functioning independently in their neighborhoods. They know a lot of the old wives' tales, and they want reassurance from us that these people are people who can meet the community standards, and that we also provide supports to make sure that the home functions as it should as a neighborhood home. They also will have concerns about property values. Though we see the community home as a home, the people see LEDA Services or other providers as a business, and so they will see the home as a business. And there we have to work with them and help them to understand that over the last 20 years, the statistics have shown that in general property values do not go down, and that with time a community home normally fits right into the normal ebb and flow of any particular neighborhood. In helping them to deal with that, we also point out that for our services to be successful, the people have to live successfully within that neighborhood. And it's a win situation for us, it's a win situation for the people, and it's a win situation for the neighborhood. That's the best sort of thing that can occur. They will also have concerns about the staff and the additional traffic in the neighborhood. We do provide 24 hours supervision for the clients in the home because by definition these people, though they are striving for independence, they still need some level of assistance, and we provide that. People generally are not accustomed to having people come in and out of their neighborhoods on a shift sort of basis, and they'll be concerned about that, and generally those are the sorts of concerns that they'll have.
Well, what are the safeguards that you have in existence that address these concerns?
The first safeguard that we have in existence is as we become aware of neighbors having concerns, we give them a series of phone numbers so that if at any time they feel like there's a problem, we give them somebody that they can call within the organization who can respond in most cases at the time the call occurs and go out there and see exactly what their concerns are. Beyond that, we have a screening system for our employees. That's not only part of our policy, but is also a requirement of the regulations that we must adhere to. That safeguard involves reference checks and police checks. In addition to that, we have people, professional people, who go in and monitor the homes to make sure that the services are being provided the way that they should, and to make sure that our staff are following the rules that they should follow. Beyond that, the state and the county provide a lot of additional safeguards in that they have case managers in the county system who come into the home and monitor to make sure that we're doing what we should. And they also look not only at the quality of services that we provide for the clients, they look at the physical plant, the way the yard looks, to make sure that we're meeting the ideal of mid-America living. Beyond that, we also have state people who will come in to survey us on time to time to make sure we're meeting standards. And more importantly than any of that are the family that are involved with those people, because family members certainly set a high standard in terms of what they want to see happening for their sons or daughters that are living in these homes.
So it isn't just as though you open up a home, put residents in, and leave. There's so much monitoring, so many safeguards, so many people that are checking in to make sure things are running smoothly, that if something starts to go wrong, it would be immediately checked.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, Tom, what is the Stark County Board of Mental Retardation and Developmental Disabilities relationship with LEDA?
Well, LEDA is another provider, and we are involved with LEDA as we are with VOCA. And as Bob said, we do monitor the services, and we also monitor the physical plant to make sure everything is running smoothly and as it should. Our relationship with LEDA has been very successful, and we've been very pleased with the relationship.
Okay, if someone has concerns or questions and they'd like to talk to someone about this, who do they call?
Well, they can call the Case Management Department or Social Services Department of the Board of MRDD, and Fran Pratt had given that number earlier, or they can call the main office of the board.
Okay, and the Social Services office number is 477-4477, and the Stark County MRDD main number is 477-5200.
That's correct.
And you have a wonderful switchboard operator who switches things to the correct place.
Yes.
Now, Tom, what are your personal thoughts about community placement for persons with mental retardation and developmental disabilities compared to institutionalizing?
Well, I've been working in the field of mental retardation, developmental disabilities for 21 years, and the changes that I've seen are very exciting. Of course, I'm very supportive of the residential options that are being provided, and it's been pretty much determined that this is the way we're going to go. And the determination has not just been by the state, but it's been by the clients themselves, family members, staff members of boards of MRDD, community members. So it's been a process that's involved many, many people.
I'm sure that there are a lot more opportunities that for normal living that can be presented to your clients when they're in a home and in a home setting compared to being in an institution where certain things just wouldn't be available that would be available in a home.
That's correct. The homes are set up just like regular homes, and the opportunities are very great for those individuals.
Thanks for coming this evening. We've been speaking to the Stark County Board of Mental Retardation and Developmental Disabilities about options for community living. This wraps up another Reflections. Thanks for joining us.